Welcome back, Curious Hearts. I'm Vera. Together, in every episode, we get to explore what it is we really believe, how we practice, and we get to meet people who are on their own spiritual path. Together, we begin. Hey, y'all, welcome back. Happy holidays, Yuletide blessings, happy solstice. Way up on top of my head, if you are watching the video version, you are seeing this completely absurdist Christmas tree that I had the super pleasure, the joy, the delight of crafting, of putting together yesterday. I worked on it with a couple of dear friends of mine who are also yoga teachers, and I am sort of hopeful that it becomes a new tradition. But I wanted to share specifically about this today because the spiritual practice that we're thinking about, that I want to encourage you to explore, especially this time of year, is your creativity. So often when we think about our spiritual practices, they get really serious and very intense. And I think if we limit them only to the heavy, weighty, or sort of dry, withdrawn practices, then we lose the juice and the flavor of what is true about the divine, which is that the divine is this magical, extraordinary, playful, joyful, expansive energy that contains all of what is possible inside of possibilities. And the reality is, a lot of stuff in the world is hard, but there is also so much good, fun, delightful, exciting stuff. And I find that there are two spiritual practices that get me in touch with that fastest. And one of them is humor. We'll talk about that another day. But today, the spiritual practice we're talking about is creativity. A creative practice does not have to be a trained artistic practice. Some people are trained musicians or visual artists or poets or musicians, whatever, and they have this real virtuosity. And we have been, some of us, trained in this current culture to believe that in order to be creative, in order to be expressive, we have to be an expert at that. Or that more specifically, that the outcome of our creative practice has to be an appropriate commodity, right? It has to be good enough for somebody else to think it's good. I don't even know what that would mean, right? So that means that if we think we quote unquote can't sing, if we think we're tone deaf, or someone told us years ago, right, that we're tone deaf, you mouth the words when we sing, you don't sing with everybody. A little part of us that is naturally expressive and naturally creative sort of curls into its shell and goes to hide in the corner. And that is one of the greatest tragedies that I can imagine. Because when we connect to our creative practices, we are affirming the divine inside of us. And at its core, in every tradition and every religious belief system, whatever, the divine is the creator, the manifester. Maybe, the clockmaker just gets everything started, maybe, created everything in 6 days and then rested on the seventh. Or maybe is this divine reality that is manifesting for us to be delighted all of the time. Or maybe it just infuses every living thing, right, with its own energy. But regardless, the divine has in its core energy a sense of creation, of making, of manifesting something out of that was not there before. And I don't know about you, but when I look around at the world, I actually don't think all of the divine creation is perfect and magical. And sometimes things go wrong, and sometimes they don't quite fit together, and sometimes they're sort of awkward. And if you look at them long enough, they're sort of silly and funny. When we can step into that part of ourself that can make something from nothing, that can put together things that hadn't already existed together into something new. We are tapping into that part of ourself that is divine, that is divinely creative, that is divinely expressive. So, my weirdo little somebody called it a psychedelic whirling dervish, which is actually my favorite. The topper of this tree did not go the way that I was hoping, and that's okay, because every moment that I was making it, I was with it. I was in the presence of following the next step and exploring together with my divine creativity what came next. And the final result, is what it is. And I can tell stories about it, and maybe I'll go back and change some things and move things around. But it is not the final product of the creative practice that is the most important. Like any other practice, the most important part of the creative practice is the practice. It's sitting down with our hands or with our voice, with our body, and expressing something, creating and making something, shaping something that had not been there before. I believe that creative practices are a kind of alchemy. And I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. Cooking, baking especially. Baking is 100% chemistry and science. And if you just look at, the bare ingredients, even from their original form, right? Sugar cane and a cow and, some wheat stalks. The fact that that can transform into magical cakes and cookies is an everyday miracle. And I am 100% on board with those kinds of miracles, except for the wheat part that I can't eat anymore. Taking things from their initial creation, right? What they exist as right now, and being able to recombine and shape them into something new is a kind of alchemy. It is a magical practice. So when I think about creative practice, I don't just think about typical artistic practices, although I include those too, including, the making of weird tabletop Christmas tree crafts. Singing, even just humming along or whistling or making up songs. Writing really bad poetry. Putting, some colored pencils to a paper and doodling and drawing something new. Any of those things we think of as being sort of artistic, but there is a creative flow that is moving in them. But also cooking. Cooking when we are really present with the combining of ingredients and experiencing all of the sensory input of the smell and the feeling and making a mess and the heat and the way that things transform into some final dish that we then share with others. Gardening is probably one of my favorite examples, because what a fucking miracle growing another living thing is. Being able to tend to it and just shape it a little bit. Every time, one of my monstera leaves come out, I'm like, what are you doing? That is so extraordinary. Here is this life living. And I'm not forcing it to grow, but I am in relationship with those plants as they are growing and evolving. It is not a far stretch then, as you might see, to get to parenting. And so for those of you who have children, creating new life is one of the most creative acts there are. And I think it is one of the closest and fastest routes to our own inner divinity. And just like any other creative project, it is not, raising children is not about the finished product, right? You do not own your children. You actually, the older they get, I'm sure you realize how little you control them, how confusing and confounding and miraculous whatever influence you had on them was. And yet their existence in the world is miraculous. This is a practice that is available to everyone, this creative practice, this making of something. And what is essential, as you've heard me say over and over again, are a few things. One is that you are not obsessed with the final outcome. Instead, you are immersed in the process of the making. Two, you are experiencing what is moving through you. So as you are, writing your terrible poem or creating your abstract design or making up your silly little song, each of those things is coming through you, where you are a channel for this manifested magic of creation. It is a way for you to open yourself up to what is naturally there all the time, which is your divine creative magic. And the last and probably the hardest part, which is true of every practice, is that we must drop our judgment of ourselves. We must release our constant desire to evaluate, our constant desire to ask how it's going, and is it good enough, and what will they think, and this is a waste of time. That all of that judging thought, just like when we meditate, we notice, we go, okay, I think this is bad. Fine. That's just an opinion. Can I be back in the practice of putting my hands in this, of, feeling the clay being shaped, feeling its coldness and its density and the way that it receives the pressure and the warmth of my hands? Can I allow some mysterious force to guide my hand as I am making that little curl or round? These are the moments when we have direct access to the divine. And that is our practice for this week, for this month, for our life, I hope. That we can make things, not because they need to be products and sold, but that we make things because it is our birthright, it is our essence. It affirms and reaffirms over and over again that divine power that we have, that each one of us has. So this is your assignment, if you will accept it. And this episode is going to be released right around the holidays, and maybe you're in a place where you'll have a little extra time or space to practice with your creative self. I want you to find something that's already in your home, in your space, in your office, in your car, wherever you are. Maybe you just have the back of an envelope and a pen that's running out of ink. But start to create something, not with an idea about the end in mind, but put the tip of the pen to the paper and allow the mystery to move your hand, to see what kind of shapes are drawn, to feel the sensation of making, to start to open that pathway so that the more we repeat it, the more that we listen, the more we are able to open up the floodgates and simply allow expression to move through us into the world. The stronger and stronger we are connected to that extraordinary, magical, mysterious, divine, creative power that exists inside of us. And maybe you'll end up with, a weirdo, psychedelic whirling dervish Christmas tree. Or maybe you'll end up with a poem that you never share with anyone. Or maybe you'll go out into the yard and put your hands deep in the dirt and maybe make a shape in the earth, or maybe plant a seed. But my prayer for you is that you have a regular practice of reconnecting to that magical, extraordinary, creative self. Because your own spark of divinity is that close. It's available all the time. And all you have to do is begin. I am wishing you a magical holiday, a magical day, week, hour, wherever you are. And thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in, Curious Hearts. If this episode was useful, I hope you'll follow the show or leave a review or share it with somebody who you think needs it. And if you're craving support on your own spiritual path or seeking some meaningful work, you can find ways to work with me at veralester.com. Otherwise, until next time, please stay grounded in that curiosity that you've got and keep turning towards what matters. See y'all soon.